I always admire people that like take a different path than like the usual conventional path. And I remember later, I feel like in college when I heard about like the program that you had chosen, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I was like, Sahar, that's lit. That's so cool. But like before we even like dive into like what you're doing, as an adult now in the world, uh, I guess I wanted to just like know more about your journey and like growing up on the island and like just like more about who Sahar is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I love when it's an open ended introduction because I never know what I'm going to say next. Yeah, so my name is Sahar. For those of you who don't know me, which I'm sure is all of you or many of you, I was born and raised on the island. And my mom is actually from Iran, and my dad is from Aruba and Curacao. So I grew up with a very, I would say, like diverse cultural context. So even though my mom is from Iran, a lot of her family left Iran just like before the revolution over there to go live in various countries. So my mom actually spent a lot of her time in high school in West Africa, and so she lived in Togo, Ivory Coast,
Wow.
and if I don't remember this, she gonna let me know. Togo, Ivory Coast, and Burkina Faso. And a lot of her siblings went to places like Germany, the Philippines, Japan. Like just having that. I haven't been to all of those
Wow.
places, but just like having that cultural context and that kind of like global framework of like what family means was really important, I think, to my story. And yeah, my dad is from the Dutch Caribbean, has lived in almost all of the Dutch Caribbean islands, Aruba, Curacao, Statia, St. Martin, not yet Seba, even though Seba is beautiful. And my ancestors
Yeah.
are all from within the region on that side. And so it's been, yeah, it was interesting to grow up, I think, with that, like just as a starting point. Went to Sister Martha, for those of you who might be from Sister Martha. And so that was interesting because I didn't, yeah, my mom doesn't speak Dutch. My dad speaks Dutch, but yeah, it's just learning a whole new kind of like framework of education and language and learning and all these things. And then I went to St. Dominic, also very proud St. Dominic High alum. And then for me, what happened next was a little different. So I think I knew that what I wanted to do would require me to be in a different environment, an environment where I'd be surrounded by people from around the world. And I knew that my heart wanted to make a difference. I just didn't know how. And I didn't know what that would look like for me without some kind of, guidance. And so I chose to not go straight to college after high school. So I finished in Dominic when I was 16, and I was like, what do I do next? And I think that was a turning point for me because I was like, I could either go to like to a college in Holland, and so I applied to like one in Groningen. I don't remember what I applied for. I was just like, I guess I have to choose something. Like you're 16 or 17, 18. You're like, I have to make a
Yeah.
choice about the rest of my life. And so I like probably chose something like international something or other. And then, but I also applied to what's called United World College, which is basically a 2 year scholarship based program where you live in one of 18 countries for 2 years with people from all around the world who are also around the ages of like 16 to 18. And so, yeah, scholarship based boarding school, I should say. But it's all about like bringing about peace and a sustainable future and all that good stuff. And so it sounded really attractive to me. And I went there, spent 2 years, and just realized like, whoa, even though I came out here to get some more answers about like who I was and what I wanted, I was still kind of going through the education, the traditional education system. So I had to do the IB there, the International Baccalaureate program. And I was like, damn, like this is the school just hasn't given me the answers about life that I wanted. So I took a gap year, and that to me has been like a really impactful experience as well. And just throughout the communities that I've been able to build for myself by being in like new and uncomfortable situations and being with people from countries I never heard of before was has like really changed, I think, who I am on a fundamental level. And I can speak more about any of those things later, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. I guess okay, I have so many questions after that, but I'm curious, like with your mom being from Iran and your dad being a Reuben, like what was like the religious context at home, or was it pretty much just whatever?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, because my mom, even though she's from Iran, she actually isn't part of the religious majority, and so my mom and I are Baha'is, and so for people who haven't heard of the Baha'i faith, it's a minority religion within the world, but especially within Iran, and it's also persecuted.
Wow.
Yeah, so. When my mom's family, when the revolution happened in Iran, a lot of my family had already gone, but those who were there really had to get out because they were basically harming or putting or persecuting anybody who was not Muslim. And so that was the kind of context from which a lot of my mom's side of the family was coming from. But being growing up here, I think is interesting because like I'm the only, I think there's like one other one growing up, but like the only Baha'i youth on the island. So
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
yeah, and so maybe I'll just like describe what it is real quick for people who might not know. But within the Baha'i faith, we basically believe that humanity is one. We believe that humans are spiritual beings having a human experience as opposed to humans having a spiritual experience. So our true essence is our soul, and that soul will live on until eternity. And that is kind of like the gist of it. There's a lot of the messaging is around justice and peace, and for me I think that all and unity, and I think that played a really big role in why I was so interested in creating a better world, even though I know like that I feel like that's something people throw around a lot where they're like, I just want to change the world, and it's hard but I do think it really gave me the kind of frame of mind of like I I can make like a difference will happen regardless, because that's kind of like I guess the spiritual destiny of humanity, but I need to play a role in that, and I need to do it on a local level because in the Baha'i faith there's a lot of focus on like community based activities. And so that was that. And then I went to Catholic school all my life, and my dad is Methodist. And so it was like a mix of experiences. I think I was able to learn a lot about just like different faiths. And within the Baha'i faith, you have to. We believe that all of the um, prophets of the major world religions were all one. And so like all of the world religions are one. Yeah. And so
Bro, you are blowing my mind right now, Sahar. Bro, I literally used to tell this to my dad. Oh my god, I relate to this story so on so many dimensions. I'm like, it is blowing my mind right now. Like, okay, because like you were talking about how like your family was being persecuted because of being non-Muslim in Iran during that whole revolution. Literally, like my grandparents went through a similar situation in the Sindh province of what is now Pakistan during the like when the British pretty much like divided the country. And I was like, oh my god, like they too had to leave because like they literally would have died without if they didn't. Like they were being people were dying like literally being killed, which is like an insane thing when I used to talk to my grandpa and he was like, "Yeah, I have this tattoo in case, I got lost so they could find me. Like they would know that like I was who I said I was." And that is so wild. And like even like my dad's a like we're like Radhaswami Indians, which is like a specific, I guess, type of Hinduism. And a lot of it does tie to this. So like when I grew up in like my mom being Methodist as well, it's just like that weird duality. And I too, like at a very young age, like just had this idea of like we have so many different prophets, but they're actually all representing the same ideology. And there's like this oneness. So I'm like, oh my God, like it's like I see the parallels. Wow. Blowing my mind.
especially being in growing up in like a kind of mixed context where like one family comes from or one parent comes from a very far away region, I would say, or like further away. Like there's just so much
Yeah.
that you're like that you have to grapple with. You're like, whoa, like what? There's so many realities. I or like maybe there's one true reality, but like when I see how different people experience the world, I'm like, whoa, like we're
It's
standing on the backs
insane.
of giants. It's insane. I
Yeah.
know. It's I know. But yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about my like kind of heritage and
Super cool.
yeah, religious context.
Super cool. I guess, like, being on St. Martin, I feel like I don't know if you felt this, but because we are a very much, like, Christian dominant, island, I always felt, like, isolated when I ever talked about, like, my more Hindu side of, like, my belief system or, like, I always felt like a weirdo, and I'm curious, like, did you also kinda have, like, that kind of, like, otherness when you talked about, like, your spiritual beliefs? Because it's like as much as, like, we are very accepting, there is sort of, like, this, like, very, like, clear idea of, like, you're gonna go to heaven if you believe this specific way of human development versus, other potential stories that could be why we're here, you know?
Yo, this is a conversation I actually have a lot because yeah, man, oof, growing up, like there's just so many times where people would just not I think people would be either intrigued, but I think there would also be there's like a lot of fear around difference. And so like I would bring it up and they'd be like, "Oh, that's interesting, but like you're gonna go to hell." And I'm like, "Okay, cool."
Yeah, or, like, they'd, like, argue with you, like, "What do you mean? Like, how do you believe that?" And I'm like, "Why are you making me defend my beliefs at 5? I don't
I don't
understand."
understand.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
just here.
I know. And I think like there are times, yeah, when people would be like, "Oh, it's like a false prophet, false religion," or like, "Oh, you're related to the devil or hell," and I'm just like, "Whoa!" Like, it's so interesting to me because I don't even believe in the devil or in hell. Just like when it comes down to just like on a fundamental level, I'm like, "Whoa!" All of these things are kind of 50-50. Like, it could be there could be a God, there could not.
You're right, I could be going there, but,
I'm gonna take the other. I'm gonna take the glass half full over there.
Imma be like if I go up to the gates, Imma be like, "Jesus, I'm sorry, man, I really did try, I wasn't, like, against you, but, like, I felt like you coulda give your girl a sign if you were really, I was asking for clarity, you coulda helped,
I know, but
like."
it's fascinating to me too because like I mentioned, so just believing that all religions are one, and in doing that, you have to learn about all the religions, and you have to believe in all these like
Yes.
amazing people that are amazing figures in the past, like Buddha, like Jesus, like Muhammad, like just all of them. I'm just like these people were extraordinary, and I believe that, and I want to learn more about that. But then it's interesting because what they're even though they were such open beings, a lot of the kind of like communities that have taken on their messages have also made it a little bit of something divisive, and I think that to me really hurts.
Yeah, the labeling, the like, trying to just divide, and I'm like, "There's no why are we dividing? There's no need to divide, like, you're isolating yourself even more, there's no point."
When we can learn from each other, at the end of the day, like
Exactly.
I'm a like take me to church, take me to
But, like, don't tell me that half of my family is gonna rot in the fiery depths. I'm like, "Oof, that's kinda hard for a kid to rationalize, like, "What? My grandma's a saint, what are you talking about?"
that is, yeah, that's something that I feel like you as a just minor, like even though we may not feel like a minority in some ways, I feel like when it comes to just like beliefs, people can take that really strongly. And so I think for me, a lot of the answer to that has just been like openness and just being as open as possible to learning from other people, and realizing that like yeah, maybe judgment may come, but it's coming from a place of maybe fear. Like people actually might be scared that I might go, like that the next step in my journey might be um, a miserable one in hell or something. And I think a lot of people, I think at the end of the day, people care. People do care, and they're scared, and I think that's yeah, that's kind of where I let it be, and at the end of the day, like I just want to learn from people, and hopefully one day everybody will be open
Preach.
from each other.
That's why it's, like, so awesome. I'm like, "Oh my god, like, I see what you see, I get it." I'm like, "Where were you when I was going through my identity crisis?" I'm kidding.
Yo, I feel that 1000%. Oh,
But it's like I always looked at it as like all of these different like leaders were like incarnations of just the universe and they were here, to teach us some dimension of like being. And that's why I've always like really I felt drawn to the Eastern traditions or like philosophies, and a lot of like the just different modalities of trying to understand self. Because it's like when you go over there, you see like these are not like the questions that like for example, and I'm curious what questions you were like trying to understand about life because I feel you like school and college doesn't really give you the answers you be hoping for. But I feel like when I would go into like just like history and like thinking about what philosophers were thinking about, like a lot of the things that I feel like I was questioning were stuff that humans have been toggling with forever. And I don't know, I feel like it's weird that like in our modern time that we don't have more conversations about like what is life and like why we're here and understanding our selfhood. But I hope, like, with, like, podcasts like this that we can have, like, more interesting discussions around that because I think, like, people need that as much as they need beliefs to ground themselves in because otherwise you're kinda just, like, open, to any story, instead of, like, really trying to understand your own story.
Oh, yeah, 1000%. I feel like for me, a lot of the division that does exist within our society on all levels could really be healed through like meaningful conversations and stories, and I think like at the end of the day, like if you haven't heard a story of someone from the community, like a really meaningful story one on one with someone from the community that you maybe feel a division or feel some kind of like disconnection from, then it's going to be really hard to heal that relationship. And I feel like some of the big questions I asked myself were definitely questions like what is a meaningful life, and like what does it mean to have a purpose, how do I find that purpose, and um like who am I, just really big questions that I feel like have kind of become slowly refined into smaller questions and smaller questions. And I think something I learned from my experiences on my gap year, especially, was that like at the end of the day, I think a good experience gives you better questions than it does more answers sometimes. And so I feel like for me, it's just about like letting the questions continue to guide my journey, and opening those questions up to people. I think something that I felt drawn to here was kind of creating spaces where people have the safety to talk about things that maybe they feel are taboo or uncomfortable. And so something that I don't do as often as I should, but that I've been blessed to do it like a small group of people, is this thing called Wisdom Wednesdays. And so we like come together and we have tea, and then there's a topic like vulnerability or ego or I don't know, self-awareness or something. And then we create and then there's just like a little program where we all just kind of open up and break down barriers of like what we think about those topics and how those topics play into our lives. And so that to me is something that I would love to cultivate more of on the island, because I do think like people people want to have these conversations but maybe don't always have the tools to have them or the space to have them. um so I feel you 1000%,
No, I think that's amazing. Like, I would love to join Wisdom Wednesday. I'm like, I think it's so like, cause I feel you because like otherwise like we each are just asking ourselves like these questions individually and like sometimes we don't know or don't have the language to process that thought, really and truly. And I think like when you have a community where you can just like say how you're feeling and you can hear how other people describe their experiences, especially around like the thoughts that we have, you realize like a lot of the things that we think are very similar. You know what I mean? And like a lot of the doubts that we have are very similar. And a lot of the pains that we have that we think we're fighting alone are actually shared by other people. Or even like the negative thoughts that we have about ourselves are not actually grounded in truth. But it's when you talk about them in a safe space where you feel like you can really be vulnerable and you're not going to be judged so that you are like triggered into like anxiety or even more fear, you can really then heal because I think then you realize like you can actually like grow from a place of like love and support and it not just be like I'm trying to figure all this stuff out on my own and I don't know anybody else is trying to figure this out and it just seems like a lot cuz like when you ask like what is the meaning of life and then you find out like it is what you make of it. You're like, "Oh, what do I do with that?" Like, you're like, "Oh," like that could go two ways. You could take that and be really happy and find peace, or you could go a really, depressed and like just detach yourself from the world because you're like, it is what I make of it, so none of it really, matters at the end of the day. But when you have support, you realize, like, it does matter. It matters in, like, the interactions that you have on the day-to-day basis. It matters in how you show up, like, in the conversations that you have and the relationships that you build. That all adds up, even though we can't measure that because we're terrible at seeing, like, the local effects of things. We forget that that is really, like, the essence of change. Like, that is the essence of being. But we're so caught up in like what everyone else is telling us is happening that we forget, like, no, it's like in you in that moment right now. That is life.
And it's interesting
So yeah.
to, yeah, I love it. I think it's interesting too because I think that there's also a balance to be found in, like, I do think all of our answers are within us, and I do think that, like, maybe there's like divine source guiding that as well, that journey. And at the same time, I think it's important to, like you're saying, ground that in, like, community and in the people that you get to interact with, because I feel like we I feel like we sometimes forget that, like, when it comes down to it, like, you can think you're whatever. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm such a patient person, and then I meet somebody who tests that patience. I'm like, just kidding, just kidding. So I think it's really important to, like, learn about yourself through yourself, but also through the community and, like, through the people that you interact with, and that the journey towards, like, ultimate self-discovery or enlightenment or whatever it is, will come through multiple facets, and whether, and, like, multiple realms, like the inner plane and maybe the social plane and maybe the spiritual plane, and all of those things are interacting. But yeah, I definitely think at the end of the day, I feel like people feel like they can do it all by themselves, and I do think that's where sometimes we might falter a little bit, because our society feeds us individualism as a as, like, the way to be.
Like, you got this. You don't need no help. You strong. You don't need to cry. Sleep it off. Fake it till you make it. Just smile. And it's like, okay, but like, I need to cry and I need to talk to someone about it. And I need to vent that feeling, not because it makes me weak, but because it makes me strong. Like, so I feel you 100%. But I'm curious, like, where did you go for the 2-year program? Because you said it was, like, in a bunch of you could go to, like, different countries, so where did you go?
Yeah, the funny part is I still went to the Netherlands. So even though I was like, oh, I could go to any of these countries, when you apply, they choose where you go. And they were like,
Oh.
Maastricht is good for you. And I was like, oh, cool. And it ended up being a really great experience. And so, like, I think it could have happened anywhere and the people would have made it incredible. But yeah, it definitely confused some people, because I feel like when I went there, people thought I was already in university. And so, like, 5 years later, people were like, are you still in Holland? I'm like, no, no, no. It was just a 2-year thing. And then, yeah, but I went to the Netherlands. And then for my gap year, I went to Ecuador. And I think I was really,
Lit.
yeah, that was really nice. That was really a blessing too. And I think, like, for me, what I've really been able to value is just, like, being in a community for a long period of time. Like, I love traveling, but I think I like slow travel. I've noticed more than anything, like going somewhere for like 3 months, like that, at least, or a good chunk of time. I think that to me is really special, because I think there's like a, yeah, it takes a little while, especially if you don't know the language, to really feel like you've experienced a place. But yeah, so that was my journey. The Netherlands, Ecuador, and then I went to school in Canada for my university, and then the pandemic hit, and I came back home.
I guess, like, how was living in Ecuador? I always wanted to, well, I still want to go to South America. I would really love, like, my dream one day is to be able to spend time with, like, the shamans of the Amazonian forest. Like, to me, those are, like, the G's, the gangsters of the natural world, and I could learn so much from them. Like, oh, my goal is to meet a medicine man. They only if they only knew.
I love that. Actually, so Ecuador is amazing because it has, like, the coast, the mountains, and the Amazon. And I was in the mountains for, like, when I lived there, but you get in the program that I was in,
Beautiful.
yeah. And so it's called Global Citizen Year, the program that I was in, and it has like a lot of the kind of values I was talking about. Or I don't know if I spoke to you about this now or in the branding course, but basically just like about focusing on what we didn't learn in schools. And so in that program, you get like a few days off to travel, and one of the travels I did was to the Amazon. And we were like, okay, how are we going to do this right? We have like 3 days. And so we stayed, I don't know if it's called like it's like one of those things where you can exchange work for lodging, one of those kind of like platforms.
Lit.
Yeah, so we did that, and we were helping this indigenous family create an eco lodge, and they were so amazing. Like that, I think what you're saying about just like people being so in tune with the earth, I was like, whoa, whoa. Like, I feel like we've been taught to be distracted from what really matters at the end of the day, and I think a lot of what matters can be found in, like, obviously in ourselves and just having time to ourselves, but also in nature. And I say that, but I don't spend much time out there. But just when you do find people who are connected, you're like, yep, you get it. And so that was a beautiful experience. Because when I was staying there, besides doing work for them, they also would kind of invite us to do some of like the family practices they had, and one of them was waking up at 4 a.m. to drink what's called wayusa. Wait, wayusa, not ayahuasca, because people.
I was about to say, I was like, Sahar. I'm like, that's dope. I was like, oh my God, you're doing. I'm like, that's goals, goals. We'll get there one day, but we still need some time. I need to prepare mentally for that journey. I can't.
I don't know enough about that, but I do know, I definitely think it's good to go in with like a clear state of mind. But no, we were just drinking tea. Wait, and it was this tea called Bayusa. And so what they're explaining to us is that they wake up at 4 a.m. with their kids every day to just talk about stories and talk about life before school starts, and
Beautiful.
talk about their dreams and what dreams they had. And I was like, imagine the just taking the time.
Parenting goals. That is amazing.
And what was incredible, some of these kids, first of all, the kids were just really cool. Like one of them had a monkey as a pet. The monkey's name was Mackie, and they just like would swing on a little swing together. And I was just like, whoa, this is a whole different context. Like growing up,
A vibe. Yeah.
like you grow up in such a small island, and you think like that's the world, and then you go somewhere else, you're like, that's a totally different way of living. And but yeah, super cool family. And what I thought was really impactful was that all of them knew, and I think everybody should know this, but we don't. But all of them knew every, like, the names of every plant, and like what each plant did, and how it worked and why it was important. And I was like, whoa, like that I wish we thought the land mattered as much as they do. And then yeah, and I think what their goal was as a family was to try to like make sure that lived on. And so they were going to create like a sort of like medicine garden with all of the different plants and what they did. And I remember I asked them too, I was like, like, or I don't know if I asked them or they brought it up, they were like, if let's say cobra, not cobra, some kind of snake that lives in the Amazon bites you, and you know that the plant you need is 2 hours away, and you only have 30 minutes to live, like, we're gonna go to a pharmacy. And I think that was just so like, I was like, duh. Some people are so like, no, no natural medicine, or like no, I guess like Western medicine.
Western, I feel you.
And then they were
Yeah.
just like, why not have a balance? And I was like, isn't that what life's about? So that was a real learning moment for me too.
They're living in the future. Like I'm telling you, that is where I'm hoping we can move to as a civilization, cuz I'm like, yeah, like it blows my mind how people have forgotten how much the land matters, not forgetting that we come from the land. Like without that, there's no us. And it's like we don't even know, like, yeah, like what plants are around us and how they can help us, how we can harvest them, feed our families, feed the land, just feed life, just by understanding what is around us and like growing in accordance with how nature grows. I feel like we just like have so isolated ourselves from the natural world that we're forgotten, like, "Oh, we're not from there." Like, no, like, "Ew, dirt, ew, no thank you, I don't want nothing to do with that, keep the germs away from me," and I'm like, "Bro, you have germs in your gut that help you process the food that you eat. You can't kill all germs, you need them." But it's like we've forgotten. And it's like, I don't know if you've heard of this, but I was listening to this one podcast with Sadhguru Guru who's like, he's cool. He's a cool dude. I hope to meet him one day. He's so cute. But he was talking about like even when we're thinking about the land today, like the way that we have just grown food on such a mass scale has like completely depleted the nutritional quality of our land. And as a result, like humans are at risk of a mass malnutrition, situation. Not because we can't grow food, but because the food that we grow is not nutritious enough to sustain us anymore. And it's all because we've forgotten like this relationship with the land and how you're supposed to rotate crops or, plant a biodiverse farm that's more in a line with like how the earth should be maintained. And we just don't do that. We just slash and burn and just destroy the earth. And now it's like destroying us, And I'm like, guys, we need to change. Please, 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 please.
The course I'm doing, or so I started a master's degree in applied community development, and the first course I'm doing is sustainable communities.
Awesome.
And my teacher is from Bolivia and lives in the Amazon, and he was talking about this exact problem. Right. I was like, oh my, it's just fascinating to me, just like thinking about how um, little we know about soil and how little we know about plants and how little we know about like how to keep ourselves alive in a sustainable way. And he's like just talking about how like people, people don't think the land has intrinsic value, right? Like they're just like, yeah, land is only as valuable as we can make it when we develop it or extract from it, And so he was just telling us about like all the times that people would come in and like just like get rid of, or not get rid of, like just get rid of the community, yeah, that was there, and just be like, this is now for us to find gold, or oil. And you might think like, oh, that's not good, they're not good people, or whatever you want to think that is. But it's more when at the end of the day, like we're connected to that, you know what I mean? Like I feel like people forget that everything, I mean, I believe everything is connected. And I think it's like if one community is harmed, then like that has a global like ripple.
We all feel it. Exactly, exactly. Like it's like you can't dig up the soil in one place and not expect the dust that go up in the air to not float throughout the rest of the globe. Like literally it's like how we get affected by the Sahara Desert. It affects the Caribbean, which if I'm like, guys, it does affect people. Just, wake up, It's like look at the bigger picture, please. Like
I
please.
know, but it's interesting that especially when it comes to like the idea of sustainability, is like we're so everything is just so convenient. You buy everything is wrapped in plastic, and like oil gets you everywhere, and we have very few. I don't think there's any, I don't know, curriculum built into our schools to teach about like climate change and sustainability at that level. For kids to be like, whoa, this needs to change. And like when everybody around the world was walking out of school for the Greta Thunberg thing, like just like everybody's like, yeah, there's like a climate change strike or protest, and then like no one here did it. And I think that's like and that's no fault of the kids, you know what I mean? I think it's like we have like omitted such an important part of the future, their future, from their education system and from their school. So
I don't remember what grade it was, but I remember when I think we had to be little, but it's like when the Inconvenient Truth movie came out and I saw like Al Gore's projection of just like sea level rising and I was like, where's St. Martin? I was like looking at the map. I was like, oh, wait, Al Gore. Gore, you're missing some places. Gore, what happened to the Caribbean real quick? Can we backtrack in the movie? I have a question, teacher. Teacher, wait, what happened? And like I was so scarred, I swear, after watching that movie. Like I left and I was just like, why is everybody so calm about this? I'm like, I'm confused why like the adults don't seem to care about what I just saw on that screen. I'm like, that red flag red flag. But I also feel like our generation low key was like raised by like hippies a little bit. Like I feel like some of our teachers came from that like 70s, like peace, no war vibe. Or at least like in Montessori, Miss Kate was like my favorite. And I feel like it did, at least in me, or at least some of my peers, indoctrinate this like importance for nature. And I feel like growing up on an island, like like I don't know if you all and St. Dominic's also had like all the mangrove like campaigns and stuff like that. But I always, and I don't know if it's just maybe my being, but I've always loved nature, and like I just don't understand. I'm like, if you go into nature, it shows you its value. Just go into it. Just go immerse yourself for like 30 minutes to an hour, and like you already feel so relaxed, so at ease, just so in the present. Like I remember, near St. Dominic's you have like the farm, the hillside farm that's like, I remember we went there for like a mini master or like a field trip or something, and we had no cell reception because you're up in the mountains. And I remember by the end of the day, everybody was just so happy and so at peace because like we couldn't check our phones, we couldn't go on like the early Instagram or Facebook and stuff. And I just remember being like, wow, like, so this is what it would have been like if we didn't have connection like that. This feeling of ease, this release of anxiety. I'm like, I don't know, that's interesting. Interesting, you know?
To be honest, I feel like I didn't really want to have much of a connection with like the with the land until I went to Canada, and I was like, or in Ecuador as well, but especially Canada, where like people were like talking so much about like they would go to the river every day, no matter how cold it was. They would like go into we had a forest like 1 minute away, and I was like, bears, I don't want to go. And then they'd be like frolicking around, not caring about but it's just interesting to me because I feel like a big conversation that was had there that I never thought about was exactly what you're saying, like the land being connected to mental health, and like not being connected to the land being a real problem for your mental health. And I mean that wouldn't even be something I would hear on the island much because of so many levels, right? Like the taboo around mental health, um, and just like so many distractions from nature. But I think it's interesting that even though I like some level I know this, I still find myself just like inside on my screen. I work online, granted, but it's just like like
Same,
it's
I feel you.
yeah, like I don't know, it's so hard to it shouldn't be so hard to get out, like, and really be like, I just feel like it's hard to go out and just be like, I'm already here, like you can go hiking and then maybe you'll get to a place where you don't hear cars and all these things. But Samaritan is like developing so rapidly, and people see it as a positive thing. They're like, oh, progress. And I think it's interesting because like for me, I don't see it as such.
Me neither. I'm like, you're hurting her. You're hurting her more. You're hurting her more. Like, stop it. Like, can you stop hurting her? Like, how many times do I have to tell y'all to stop hurting her? The island is asking us to tell you to stop hurting her, and you keep hurting her. And one day she gonna bite back, and then I might just be like, I don't know. She warned you on many occasions to stop messing around, and y'all didn't want to listen. So is your focus then pretty much like trying to create a very sustainable community starting in St. Martin? Because if so, like I love that and I 100% want to be a part of that because I'm like, that is literally the life that I dream about, is like living in a very sustainable, focused, like thinking about human well being. Like pretty much creating that balance that I feel like we're lacking right now. It's not to say that we can't have technology and we can't have Western medicine and we can't have progress in that way, but it's like we need to mediate that and understand why we're doing that and like what is exactly the benefit of us doing all of these things, creating all of this development, creating all of this mess, understanding really the intention behind it. Because it's like without the earth, we can't play anymore. You know what I mean? Like this is our playground. We have to keep it clean. If we want to continue to play here, we gotta keep it at least semi together. You know what I mean? But I'm curious, like, how do you want to apply this?
So it's a good question. I think so. The reason that I ended up choosing this program that I'm in, it focuses broadly on community development. But I think I feel like I want to get like the strategies and tools to build, like you're saying, like sustainable, holistic um, communities that really focus on the full person, you know. And I think I want to find a way to do that in a way that's accessible and affordable and doesn't feel super isolating, because I feel like sometimes people will do that and it's like expensive to access it, and you're like, what?
Yeah, I feel you. Then it comes off as elitist, and then it's like that's not the point because then we have an access issue, and it's like sustainability should be have equal access. You know, it shouldn't be like a if you can afford it type of dealio. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like I don't focus much, to be honest, on like the like I don't know too much about the science behind climate change or whatnot. Like, you know, like that kind of aspect. But I think I'm very focused on the human part. Like I really wanna figure out how to help communities thrive from like an asset based perspective. It's like their strengths and we're gonna maximize those strengths as opposed to focusing on like there's problems here and everything's a problem and no one can fix it because there's no possibility of fixing a problem, as opposed to being like, whoa, we already have such amazing things happening, let's keep building on that and creating and dreaming and seeing what happens next, you know. So that's what I want to do, but how I think is going to be tangibly is my goal in life is to have a community center. So that's my ultimate goal.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is so amazing. Is that and then that's mind the gap or can I not say that?
Yeah, you can say it. I don't really know if
Okay.
it's gonna end up being that exactly. I think that's gonna that might be something more like education focused. And so just for
Okay.
context, yeah, like for people who as I was mentioning, I'm very passionate about like what the gaps in our education system and how we can fill those in a way that helps, yeah, just young people thrive. And so I think that would be something maybe like a summer school, like an afternoon school, and then the community center would
Hmm.
be something for like lifelong learners. Like anybody at any age can walk in and be like, I am welcomed here and I'm safe and I'm loved and I feel like I can become my best self. So
That is lit. That's literally amazing. I feel like people need spaces like that because I look at adults and I'm like, you guys just look like children that have had your dreams smashed and broke. And now you like grew up and you're like, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I'm here. Everything sucks. And then they just eat a bunch of shitty food to make themselves feel better. And then they get fat. And then they look in the mirror and they're like, I hate myself. And then it's even more sadness. And then the news is all fear. And then they look at life and they're like, I just feel like I was promised a different reality and this is not it. But then they don't know what to do to actually change that. And it breaks my heart because I'm like, it's within you. Like, just go within yourself. Like, I'm telling you, like, if we all did the inner work, like, we can get there. It's like you said, us all understanding our purpose, our gifts, which are like so unique to who we are and acting on that and being, purposeful in that and understanding like the value that you bring from all of your experience, even if that is trauma, even if that is, all of the things that you want to hide from the world and hide from yourself. All of that can help you in your journey to be exactly who it is that you're meant to be. And I think like community centers like that are such a crucial part of like that whole process because I think like it takes a village. Like I really and truly believe it takes a village. Like when I reflect on my upbringing and I think of all the people that exposed me to experiences that allowed me to really develop this deep love for nature and like to have a safe space to just be who I was, even though I was a kid that was still figuring it out and they still taught me and showed me unconditional love. Like that has made me the person that I am today. And I am so grateful for those people. And they don't even know. Like half of them I feel like don't even know like how grateful I am to have had them like in my life because you just don't even think about it, like, it just happens and you don't think about it, and sometimes I think, like I sometimes really, like, have this, like, weird gut feeling that we were all born on this little island for some weird reason, Sahara, like, I think it's too coincidence that we all have, like, this, like, deep attachment to selfhood and like understanding who we are and like detaching from ego and like really coming from like this intentional and purposeful place. Like I see it in you, I see it in Bianca, like in Devaney and Foth. Like there's so many people that I see like have this like beautiful essence to them. And I'm like, is it just a coincidence that we are all around the same age, like on this from the same island? Like, even though our families come from so many different places, and yet here we are. I'm like, "Ooh, I see you, universe. I see you."
Exactly. I'm not gonna like last year when I decided to move back home, it was a lot of that. It was like, whoa, the people that are here right now, like this is like I mean, obviously there's always been people who have been doing amazing things on this island, but I feel like just like from a bias perspective, I'm like, this is the moment, like I just
I feel you though. Yeah, I really do though. I feel it. I do. It's like I don't even think it's bias. I think you can tap into that energy and you can just feel like there's something about the island. Like I don't know if it's the beat, the heartbeat of St. Martin or whatever it is, but it does something. I feel like to our perception as people, and just like being able to grow up around each other and like to see each other and just to see like our differences and how that comes together. I'm like, it must have been divine intervention. Like, I'm like, I just don't see any other way to explain it. Like, it's just weird. Like, it's weird, but it's like, oh, I see,
and I feel so
I
lucky.
see.
Like I know some people would be like, oh, like I don't know. I know some people feel differently about like being from a small place and being from here specifically, but I feel so lucky. Like when I moved to Canada and all these places, I was like, whoa, like it's hard to be different, and it is hard to be different here too. I obviously, like, and I think especially um like when it comes to maybe like behavioral differences, or like how you identify. But then, for example, like being in Canada, is realizing that like the skin that I had was, making people think of me a certain way, or like the like I don't know. There's
It's
just it's
weird.
weird, like, and just like
Yeah.
I feel like we're from a very oh, I obviously, maybe I'm just privileged, but I just feel like growing up, I had amazing people around me from very different backgrounds, and I was able to really connect with them in ways that I don't know that you might always get in some environments. So I feel very lucky to be
I
from here.
feel you.
Yeah.
Exactly. 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 Like, the moment I had that epiphany, it was like, wow, like, I just like you said, like, I feel so lucky, and I agree, like, it's weird, and I feel so blessed to have grown up in a country where, like, we have that freedom to exist, even though, like, yeah, there it is hard being still different from the majority, like, you could still just be Sahar, you know what I mean? Like, who is Iranian and Arubian and has all this, and they're like, "Yeah, that's Sahar, so what? It's cool." And then you go to, like, other places and they're like, "What who is this girl? Like, what is she? What is she made up of? She looks black, but, like, there's something I don't it's not like it's not regular black, so it's like something's going on here. We can't put her in a regular box." And then they're confused, and then they, like, try to put you in that box, and you're like, "I don't why are you trying to shove me in this box? I don't fit there." And it's weird because like, at first you're like, "Wait, what's going on? Why are these people what?" And then you realize, "Oh, they didn't have the same freedoms I did. So they think like you have to fit in these boxes." Whereas like I think we really have the privilege of just growing up and existing like island babies. Like we're just running around on the beach, just doing whatever, just living life, having fun and just bonding with people. And it didn't matter like where you came from as long as you were there with like the right intentions, which was love, really, I feel.
I think
Weird.
yeah, and I think like definitely like that. I feel like that's my perspective too, based on just my experiences. And but I feel like coming back, and working with remembering my time, like watching how kids interacted too and how young people interacted, and also just like working with youth now. um, I think there is a lot though that we really need to address when it comes down to like people. It is hard for people to be different in just terms of like their personality. I think like we can be pretty accepting of like different skin tones sometimes, unless you're like from a specific. I think there's a lot of xenophobia. And there's a lot of xenophobia, especially like with people from other Caribbean islands and stuff like that. But I just like here, I feel like, for example, working with autistic youth, I'm like, whoa, people really don't understand autism, or like people really don't understand ADHD, or they really don't understand, yeah, like just like developmental stages of kids. Like kids will be loud, and they'll, like they'll just like
And they'll yell at you and like be like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I'm a kid. Like, what you want from me, bruh?" Like,
they have something's going on in my body. Yeah, exactly. And so like I think that's something I would love to see us be able to like um like learn a lot more about, like how do we let kids really be kids, like how do we let people with um, differently wired brains be themselves without them feeling ashamed of, like, who they are. And I think that's a lot of what I love to, I think, just creating an environment of like total acceptance, which is something that everybody everywhere struggles always. But I think that would be something that would like really propel us into like higher heights, and that would be true progress, not the all the buildings taking away the nature.
The wanna I feel you, I feel you. I laugh when they think that, like, construction means progress. I'm like, "That's not how that works," but okay, all of you industrial boomers, I see. I understand why you're stuck in this framework of thinking. I get it. Okay, I get it. I understand. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious, like, since being back on the island, like, cause I see, like, you create all of these cool reels about, like, all these incredible cute cafes where you can do, like, all this incredible work and just, like, highlighting the beauty of being on the island and, like, having an island to even be from. Like, what has been, like, the greatest part of being back home?
Ooh, so yeah, I mean, I think just like having access to um, a beach is really healing. Like I think there are days where I'm just like, I can't get out of my head, and then I go into some nice seawater, and I'm like, wow, that was great. And I think like being able to be in a place where people, I mean, maybe I felt like I was in a very like clean, manicured environment for a while when I was in Canada. In the sense, not in the sense of like the physical environment, but like people spoke to each other how they felt like other people wanted to hear them speak. And I don't feel like that's something that I have here as much. People just say what is on their mind.
Whatever, whatever.
Polite, political correct, I think. And so I feel like that to me
They
has
don't give a damn.
yeah. And I actually like I find it kind of interesting because I feel like it challenges me where I'm like, oh, like this conversation needs to be had differently then, or like we need to maybe I need to ask different questions to try to really understand what people are going through, but I think like just like being here, I find people here are like magical in their own way. And so I feel like the people, the ocean, would be some of my favorite things. And of course, I think there's a lot of like new ideas coming along. So like you were saying, there's some co-working spaces coming along, which we never had. Um, there are interesting like projects that people are starting. I just feel like people are really making moves for the community. And I would like to highlight more of that, like more of the good things we're already doing. And just try my best to really to support. And I think especially when it comes down to it, just like small time entrepreneurs and artists are people who I feel really strongly that like need the support that we, sometimes I feel like we'll give elsewhere but won't necessarily give to our own community. So yeah, as much as I can, just highlighting that, even though I don't use social media enough to post about it, but just showing up, like showing up to an event and just like, yeah, paying
I
kiss to
feel.
somebody.
I think that it starts, like, in small strides, like, the grassroots mentality, and it seems like I definitely see, like, I don't know if it's been because of the pandemic or just, like, people realizing the value of the island, but, like, more and more people are, I feel like, understanding, like, we're so talented, like, the island is just so full of talent, like, it just I don't even understand how. I think it's just, like, the melting pot is the heartbeat vibration, it's all of it. It just creates interesting human beings. Like, I just don't know any other way to put it. Like you said, like in St. Martin, you're gonna see all kind of people and they gonna talk to you however the hell they want to. And I honestly miss that so much because in America, like everyone's so like trying to be politically correct and be nice about everything. And I'm like, I can tell like you guys are not telling people how you really feel, and that's part of the problem. Like I feel like in St. Martin, like the fact that people are so open is in a way therapeutic because you're like, you can kind of laugh at it, but at the same time, you're like, okay, Brody, you're being a little ignorant. We need to backtrack on that real quick. Let's have a conversation about that. But like, at least the fact that you can say that, now I know we can have a conversation about it. But I don't know. To me, St. Martiners are like the most interesting, hilarious, entertaining, fun, exhilarating people on the planet. I love them with all my heart. And it like I'm just so lucky to be one of them. Like, it's just like it's an honor that I feel like you don't understand that you have until you really understand, like, there's literally nothing like this little rock in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, like, nothing like it. It blows my mind, like
Even though like it's so hard to be far away from home, that I feel like you're employing so many strategies to like keep those connections alive and do what you can to make, yeah, to make the island continue to become this the magical place that it
I
is and will
need
become.
it, Sahar. I need it.
Yeah.
Like, I need my people. Like, honestly, like, being away from home has been harder than I ever thought it was ever going to be. Like, I never thought I would care this much about that little rock. Like, I was like, wow, I really like that place. Damn. Damn. Damn.
Moment like where you were growing up and you were like, yeah, I want to leave, and then I feel like that was me as a kid. I was like, I want to be anywhere but here. You know, when you're from a small place, you're always like
Yep.
everything's happening everywhere else. And then I left, and then I was like,
Yeah.
damn, like home is like where it's at. You know, it's so interesting. I feel like I had that growing up.
100%, 100%, 100%, and, like, I was even more stubborn about it. I was like, "I'm ready to go. I ain't trying to come back. What's here for me? These people irritating. I'm over it. They don't even listen. I'm done. I'm out. Deuces, don't miss me when I'm gone, okay?" Like, I was like, "I'm outie. Don't look for me. Don't like I'm out, okay? Like, she's gone. Forget about her." And then I left and I was like, I miss them. I miss them. I miss them. Like, I miss them. Like, I miss them all. I miss it all. I miss all the chaos. I miss every second of it. I miss it so bad. But yeah, like, it just like makes me I feel so lucky to be from there. Like, there's no greater feeling than knowing that I am a St. Martiner. Honestly, I wish I could call myself Swilligan because that sounds so much better. But maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll get there.
Maybe one day. I remember one time I was in school in the Netherlands, and my teacher was like, do you call yourself St. Martians? And I was like, no, but that sounds really cool. Like that's pretty cool. It's like Martians, but St. Martians. And I was like, don't call me that again. So I love it. I feel like Swaligan would be it.
It just sounds so much better than say Martiner. Like, it doesn't even roll off your tongue. I'm like, ugh. But you've like traveled like all over though. Like, how I guess like how was living in Africa? Or like, yeah, I guess like where were you in Africa? Because I know it was like Tonga,
Togo was one.
Togo. There we go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so as I mentioned, my mom's family kind of like spread out when they left Iran, and a lot of them went to West Africa. And so two of my mom's sisters live in Togo, which is a very tiny country that is like, yeah, I think it's like usually when we think Africa, you'll think like Ghana, Nigeria, or like you really big countries, but Togo is like a little slice. And so I was able to be there for 3 months, and it was funny because it came at a time where I was in my last semester of university, and I was home for the pandemic, and I was so happy to be home, but I also had a moment where I was like, whoa, 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 there's like a lot happening at once, you know, like I felt like I was constantly like kind of like pleasing other people's needs as opposed to like really thinking about like what I needed in the moment. And so Togo was this time for me to just get away and reconnect with myself, reconnect with family, and just be, you know. And I think like I really was able to. I went initially because I wanted to learn French, but my family speaks. They obviously speak French, but like they just spoke to me in English because it's easier, and so I didn't learn as much French as I wanted to. But
I hate when that happens where you're like, don't talk to me in the language that I know. Speak to me in the other one.
I
My dad's
know
the same way. I'm like, teach me Hindi, and then he only speaks English. I'm like, bro.
you're like, what? Have you no patience with me? I feel you. Yeah, but Togo. So yeah, I think Togo was is actually my third country in Africa. So I was in Tanzania when I was 17, and then Morocco when I was 18, and then Togo. But Togo was like the longest time. So that was special to me, and was just a lot easier, or like a lot. It was a lot more meaningful because I got to really get to know people. Yeah, so that was that. I've never been to any country in Asia, which is my next. Yeah,
Mm.
I really wanna make sure. I wanna try to do like
I
one
highly
new
recommend
country.
Thailand.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
good
no,
things,
Thailand
especially
is
about
a
the
vibe.
food. I heard the food's amazing.
The food is cheap. The food is amazing. Like, I think that's literally like if I were to retire anywhere not St. Martin, it would be Thailand because the food is like that's like my favorite. Like a nice green curry. Ooh, ooh, child. Some mango sticky rice.
What would be your like top?
Some rambutan.
I don't know. That is what sounds
No, go
good.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say what would be your top five countries that you haven't been to yet but you'd like to go to? That's a long list. If you just want to say like
Okay,
three, it's
okay.
fine. Let's go five.
No, I would love to go to Indonesia because I love Indonesian food and Bali is like that's very much my vibe, you know? Like I'm very much like when I think of my best life, it's always somewhere really tropical, very like deep into nature. I always like tell people I'm always on the fence between staying in like where I am and running away to an ashram and just being a monk for the rest of my life. Like I swear. Um but then I think
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, have you read Think Like a
no, go
Monk
ahead.
by Jay Shetty? Have you read Think Like a Monk?
I have the audiobook. I haven't, like, finished it. But, like, he gave, like, a talk at Microsoft, and so, like, he gave us all, like, his audiobook or Microsoft gave us his audiobook. I don't know, one of the 2. Um, but yeah, it is pretty good. I haven't finished it. I know, I'm slacking, but
Don't be slack. Don't worry
I
about
have.
slacking. I just reminded me because he lived in an ashram. But continue. So
Yeah.
Indonesia.
No, I would love to be a monk. Yeah, no, Indonesia. I would love to go to Costa Rica because again, it has very much the, like, tropical, esque vibe. Maybe that's where I do ayahuasca, who knows? We'll see. And I would love to go I would love to go to Japan just because I would love to see, like, the technology over there. I think, like, they're, like, way in the future just from, like, home appliances, like, goals. Um, and then I I would love to go to the Scandinavian countries, like, maybe Norway or, like, Denmark, you know, some over there, just because I would like to see, like, what those countries are like. And then, I mean, I love Hawaii, the Hawaiian island. I'm an island girl, you know, I can't deny it. Like, I would love to go to other islands, but honestly, I want to go around the whole world. You know, I would love to be able to see it all if I can. I would love to be able to go to an African country just because, like, knowing that my, you know, ancestors do come from Africa, I've never been to Africa and I feel like I don't really have like a connection to that continent. And I do think it's something that I should do just as part of like reverence to just like my history, you know, and just like being able to come home in whatever way that that manifests itself. Just to be able to say like we came back, you know. Yeah, my dream life is literally to like travel the world and like use all the knowledge that I know about like building technology to help communities grow and thrive intentionally with a sustainable and like social like I guess like framework. Because I think like one thing that I don't like, and I learned like in engineering school was this idea of like when we build technology, we often don't think about like the socioeconomic impacts of the things that we make, and so like sometimes that can affect the communities more than it can help them. And when I want to build things in this world, I really want to make sure that I build it intentionally, understanding like what purpose it will serve in this world, especially considering that creation does require making a bit of a mess, and if we are going to make a mess, like we should be accountable in that, you know, like really have responsibility in that. And I think like that's where corporations I feel like could do better, you know, and hopefully like being a part of that and having these discussions, we can maybe shift that and have more of the balance that we're looking for. But that's the goal. We're trying to move towards it and we're making strides, but I think we'll get there because honestly, like that's what I want. And it's like I feel like that is really my purpose. Um and I think like that's how I can really be in this world and be happy and joyful and just give all that I know that I can give to this world while I have this body, you know.
Yeah, I actually am curious to know what type of engineering you do. I think I don't know much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No worries. I'm an electrical engineer. So the reason I even chose electrical engineering, I did not want to be an electrical engineer because like that's literally like the worst kind of engineering you could do. Like when I mean worst, I mean like the hardest. Chemical I think is like up there as well. But like it's like chemical engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering are just stress. Is if you're looking for stress, there you go. Uh and I chose electrical engineering because I really wanted to understand, like you, I had these deep questions about the world. Like, I really just wanted to understand society. I wanted to understand how the world had manifested its way to this current present time in which I existed. And I felt like technology was the best way to do that because through understanding technology, and specifically, it turned out electrical engineering was the way that I could learn all this stuff. I really wanted to understand like the physics of like how we create stuff and like understanding like how information actually flows, wirelessly, and understanding like all of that, um like the energy of like how we create, because really electrical engineers to me are like the wizards of the modern era. Like these people do some crazy things that low key would have got you burned at the stake. Okay, like it is wild what we can do. And I felt like so empowered through my degree to like have this real fundamental understanding of like how our world really works, that it brought me a lot of inner peace, because then I felt like, okay, now that I have this understanding and I understand and I'm learning to understand the industry better, which I'm so grateful for Microsoft that I can do that. I can then be a more empowered person to build technology, really understanding where it came from, why, like how it actually works, and like what we can do with it to make the world a better place. So that's why I'm an electrical engineer. I didn't want to do it, but that's where the universe pushed my butt and I endured the stress somehow. I think I used to believe growing up on an island like I was disadvantaged, and I realized like no, growing up on an island made me so much more advantaged. Like yes, I struggled a little bit, um but my perspective, I think, is unlike anybody else just because of all the difference of opinions, the diversity that just is instilled in my framework. When I look at technology, it just like I see so much of the opportunity, um, that it just makes me so excited to be an engineer and like to be in technology because it's like, yes, we can manifest it, and that's like, yeah, like so empowering. Like that's like it's incredible. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Can I ask you a follow up then? Just like going back to your
Yeah, of
time on the
course.
island, like, do you feel like how do, because I feel like a lot of kids aren't nurtured to like STEM, especially like, yeah, math. Like I just know growing up like being like, oh, math or like science or whatever it is. And what do
I
you think
know.
in your upbringing made you want to do what you do today, what fostered that love?
Honestly, I did not wanna be an engineer, like, really and truly, and the reason I didn't wanna be an engineer is because growing up in an Indian household, like, everyone in my family was, like, an engineer back in India, and I was like, "Ugh, like, I don't wanna be another Indian that's an engineer, because if you're not an engineer, you're a failure." You know what I mean? Like, I did not like, I was, like, so, like I think my dad's very much a rebel, and I have his rebel spirit in my body, like, I know that for a fact. And when I was trying to figure out, so I knew I wanted to build technology because the first time I used a computer, I was just like in awe. I was like, what the hell is this? I was like, this thing is so cool. Tell me more. And nobody could tell me. So I was like, damn, son, that sucks. Um, and I just like I knew I wanted to build technology just because I was just sold by how amazing it was. And I knew that I could go to business school and just like learn all the business schmack. But then if I worked with engineers, like I wouldn't know the language that they spoke. I wouldn't understand what they were talking about. And I felt like if I wanted to be a creator, I wanted to be able to have conversations with the engineers and actually be on their level and understand where they're coming from so that if I were to say, I want to build XYZ, I know that we can build XYZ because I have the background to understand that it's possible to build XYZ. So, like, it's not just me saying, like, oh, the market is saying we need more tablets, so let's build another one. I'm thinking of, like, I'm thinking of like what doesn't exist and how can we build that knowing what exists in the world and what we can build just knowing the talent and the flexibility of technology. And I don't know where that came from. I think my parents just, like, they always, believed in me, like, they always supported me, like, no matter what crazy idea I had, like, they were never like, "Harsha, you can't do that," like, "Harsha, don't ask that question, Harsha, don't say that," like, my parents have honestly always been my ride or die, like, every time I've had a weird idea, I'll, like, go to them just to, like, rational check and be like, "Hey, so, like, I have this thought, what do you guys think? Am I tripping or am I not tripping?" And they'd be like, most of the time, if I am tripping, they'll be like, okay, like relax. Otherwise, they just be like, no, you're saying the truth. Like, speak up. And I think in most Asian families, like girls are often like oppressed, or like told not to be great. But I feel like my parents very much never let gender be a limiting belief for me. Like they were always like my mom used to tell me, like, Harsha, you have three things against you. You're beautiful, you're black, and you're smart. And because of that, the world is gonna try and like make it so difficult for you, but you cannot let them stop you. And so, like, hearing that my whole life, like, I have always just been surrounded by people, like you said, that just love and support me. And because of that, like, I have always had a safe space whenever I felt anxious or doubt to be like, hey, like, this is how I'm feeling, and to get that reassurance. And when it comes to like math and stuff, like, I always used to think like, "Oh, I'm Indian, so, I gotta be good at the mathematics," and, like, I get that from, my Indian side or whatever. Stupidness, really, but I think, like, I just had, like, this deep intrinsic, like, obsession with learning. I love to learn, like, literally, like, learning is fun for me, like, I get a lot of pleasure from learning new things and, like, being able to apply that, like, it brings me so much joy learning that, like, I just did well in school because I loved it. Like I loved to learn. And the thing that made me hate school was the teachers that tried to limit our learning or limit our ability to ask questions or limit just like the way in which we learn. I felt like the schools on the island didn't really teach in a way that was accessible to everybody. And though like it worked for me because I'm very much a visual learner. So like if you show me something, then I got it, like I have to see it to really like understand. If you just tell it to me, like it might take me a few times to understand your language, but if you show me, I will get it 100%. And I feel like schools are typically favored toward more visual learners because like they'll write the example on the board or like you have like homework where you're practicing and you're seeing like the visual of like you practicing that method, but not everybody learns like that. And even like when I would teach my friends math, like it would be so much easier for them because I understood where they were coming from, and so I could relay the knowledge in a way that they could best receive it, which is to me the point of a teacher. But anyways, um and it's not to say, like, I didn't struggle, like, math at college was hard, so hard, like, it literally rocked my self-confidence in a way I had never felt in my life, like, I had felt the dumbest I had ever felt in college, like, literally, and it really, like, impacted my mental health and my confidence because I felt like I wasn't enough because I growing up on the island, you're always told, like, we're a disadvantage, so I went into college thinking I was disadvantaged, and, like, that played out in like just my beliefs around my ability. And it turned out that I was doing just fine. Like I was doing incredibly well. I just had to believe in myself and like understand college how it should work for me and not just like how I was being told that it should work for everybody. But it was a learning journey. And I'm really grateful that I didn't give up because electrical engineering it was hard, but I just feel so much more empowered now that even though I look back and I'm like, "Damn, that 4 years was hard," like, I feel so much more confident and empowered now by that knowledge that I'm like, "Okay, it was worth it," because now we really know, um, and yeah, like, it's like when you really know something, like, it's like you just feel so much more confident, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I think like what I was interested in that question because I feel like I'm always curious about, what does transformative education look like? So like what is education that makes you want to do something incredible or like become something incredible or change in a really important way look like? And so I was just curious to know like yeah, what got you interested in what you do today? Because I think, especially when, like you were saying, the education system is not necessarily set up to provide you that excitement for learning sometimes. Yeah.
I really think, like, for me, the school that instilled that in me, that I was allowed to keep that curiosity even though, like, LU was not, I think that environment was Montessori. I don't know if CIA still has the Montessori program, but that school, I really and truly believed set me up for success because in that school, like, we it was more task oriented, which is really how I think I best operate, and I think, recently realized that I'm a very task oriented person. But Montessori really gave me like the flexibility to learn the way that I wanted to learn, and I could learn like as much as my curiosity like had. So it's like if I had a question, I could go and learn that, and Montessori let me do that. And through that, like they also instilled other things like the importance of nature. Like we would have like a chore wheel where one of the chores was to go and like take care of the garden outside. And like that was like the best chore to have because you were outside in the sun by yourself and everybody was watching you through the window and you got to play outside pretty much. And just all you had to do was water the plants. Like that's so easy to do. But it created this like deep love and relationship for growing things and like nature and just like being so close to the lagoon. Like you don't, I think, as a kid, think about how all of that affects your ability of, like, being and how you think, but, like, we would have, like, weird things where we would, like I remember one time we were sidekicks for fun, you know what I mean? And that was just, like, an activity we were doing to learn about business, or, like, we would learn how to make pizza from scratch, or, like, we would could, like, learn whatever we wanted, and it was just, like, pretty flexible, and, like, we had art projects where we engaged our creativity, we had film, we had dance, like, and it really allowed you to just be and learn, and I think from then, like, that curiosity was just so, supported that no matter where I went, like, it was always gonna be there, you know, and all the other schools just helped, I think, answer some of the questions, but, yeah, I think it did take me leaving to experience the world, to get my degree, to work even in corporate to really have, like, this sense of, like, understanding, that now I feel unstoppable. It's
Ooh,
crazy.
I love it. I love that. And I think like curiosity, what you just said there is like the key to so much. Like leading your life with curiosity is something that I think can transform your whole path, but it's not something that's fostered in schools. And like I know so many times where like my friends would ask questions about something that wasn't, maybe directly related to the whatever it was. It's just like a powerful question, and teachers would be like, that's not what we're talking about right now. It's not really important. Sorry. And it's not the teacher's fault either. Sometimes it's like they have to give you a syllabus that aligns with an exam that defines, like at least for like system after or like um, maybe if you went like St. Dominic Primary, you have to do an exam that defines like a huge chunk of the next part of your life without even knowing much about, yourself. And so the teacher has to just get you to that point. And so if there's a time crunch and you're dealing with 30 kids in a class, it's not easy. It's not easy to do that. And so I definitely don't want to knock on teachers, but just like it's just tough, because I know like I love the philosophy of Montessori and Waldorf and all these like schools that are very innovative, or schools of thought that are very innovative, and how they apply that to just like a child's growth and really understand like the development of a child. But that's a far cry from I think what most of our kids are getting, and sometimes it's just about, yeah, sometimes people might not know that those are like philosophies that they could have access to and try to implement in their classroom, and sometimes they really don't have time and energy to do all of that. And so I love hearing that story, and I definitely think like play is a huge part of learning for kids, and I love that you brought.
It is. It is, like and it would make me so mad when teachers would see students playing and then stop it, like, because they thought that that was, like, distracting them from learning, and I'm like, "No, like, we're literally building culture by just messing around with each other, like, this is how innovation happens, like, literally and truly." Um But yeah, I think I was just very fortunate to have parents that really, like, advocated for my best interest. Cause like, I used to go to Mac, the campus one, and my mom took me out because she could tell, like, my curiosity was not being nurtured, and Like, I honestly like, I really have to give props to my mom because, like, she really and truly fought for me in a way that, like, I didn't even know I needed to be fought for, because I was just a kid. Um, but she really and truly, and I don't even know if she did this intentionally or not, but she really and truly, like, advocated for my curiosity, and she wouldn't let anybody, like, literally anybody get in the way of her child succeeding, and because of that, like, I get to do what I do now, and it's all because of her and my parent and my dad, like, because my dad gonna be like, "What about me?" Um, yeah, no, like, they both, like, they really truly fought for me as a kid, and, like, I just feel so blessed to have parents that cared that much about me, like, it means the world to have that kind of support in this world, because not everybody has it, and, like, I recognize that that is a privilege, and so it's like, because I have that privilege, I wanna create more opportunities for people to have that experience as well, because everybody deserves to feel empowered, like, everybody.
Oh, isn't that the name of your Empower? No, am I wrong?
Yes, exactly, right? Like, empower you, you know? You see a trend there?
I love it. No, yeah, I definitely,
We're trying to ting,
yeah, empower you. That's what you have. Empower you. You have Chatterbox, and that is those two main ones, right?
Just my job.
And
Yeah, pretty much as of now.
just your
We're
job. That th-
I have other thoughts, but I just need to, work on it, get some money together.
yeah.
I'm trying to build my financial freedom too, so
Oof,
it's like there's so many
yes.
things I'm juggling, but it's like once we get there, I'm telling you, I'm so excited for the future. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for my life, my journey. Like that's why I'm so honored to connect with you people because I'm like you are the people that I want to work with most. Like Sahar, like you're so incredible and so interesting. And like just seeing like now that I have this understanding of like where you're headed, I'm like, bet. So when I'm planning this out, I can see like, okay, Sahara finna be there, and then Devaney finna be there, and Rachel finna be there. And okay, I see it all coming together. Like I see the roadmap, I'm like, okay. Cool's.
I
Like
love it. I do think though, like when you said just your job, I was like, well, because first of all, I know your job is probably like a lot of hours a week. Like just generally, I think we're all struggling. But like for me, I found it really hard to like. I don't know why it felt a lot easier to pursue my own thing in college, but like the moment I started doing a job, I feel like it's been harder to really like pursue my project. So I feel like it's really admirable that you're able to do like these two very like comprehensive projects,
I got
outside
to.
of work. Mm.
I have to. I'm telling you, like, I love my job. I love, like, I feel like I'm very blessed to work for a company that actually, like, I choose to work there. Like, I have an intentional choice in my decision to be employed by these people. Like, I don't have to work here. I could go somewhere else. I'm choosing to work there. And because I made that choice, like I realized like my job is not going to be everything, every part of my being. It cannot be because that's not good for my mental health for one, and two, it just wouldn't sustain me. Like just like the way that I am, like I am a workaholic. Okay, I think I'm a workaholic, but like I get off on being like productive. Like it just brings me so much joy and fulfillment, like create and to do things. And for me, like I was doing my job, and like I figured I was definitely struggling with that work life balance, especially in the pandemic. Of like how much time should I be dedicated to my work versus like other stuff that I know is gonna just make me happy. And I struggled in the beginning of the pandemic, and I used to feel very guilty about like my work life balance. I was like, Ugh. But I realized like a lot of that was like me self-sabotaging myself because of these limiting beliefs of what I thought work had to be. And I realized like if I was going to reimagine the future of like being, I had to first be able to be like to reimagine how I work and how I work best, and just like understanding how I work in general. And for me, like in creating that and just having dialogue like with my manager and my team, I realized like the burden that I was putting on myself or the guilt that I was creating for myself was not necessary, and that I could have my work and get that done and still have time for the stuff that like made me happy, which is like having these types of conversations. Cause I'm the only St. Martiner in Surface, you know what I mean? They don't care about what's going on in Parliament, you know? Like, they working on other things, they have other focuses, but I needed, like, other spaces to just help me feel, like, fulfilled. Because like, I was bored, like, by just my job. Like, I needed more stuff to do to just sustain my, like, curiosity, and for me, like, that was the podcast and, like, creating the nonprofit. Because I felt like at least with the nonprofit, I wanted to support people in the way that I wished I was supported, and that's what I can do through that. My chatterbox is more like for me to connect with my community, to create this platform because I felt like St. Martin needed to have a voice out on the internet, and we each have our role to play in that. And I was like, well, this is something that I could do. I love to talk. Like I have so much on my mind. Like it seems like a perfect fit. And, I try to just like you said, let my curiosities drive me. Like I create a YouTube channel for fun to just like I love film. I love creating film. Like I want to have fun with that. I made a YouTube channel. Who cares? It's not gonna break or, kill me. I am having fun. Like I want to learn more about graphic design, which is like why I was taking all that branding, courses. Because that's something that like really speaks to me. Again, it gives me like that energy and passion for life. And so it seems like I'm doing a lot, but it's really like I'm doing things that just give me joy. And it's like it's different, I feel like, when it's not just like coming from like I need money to sustain me, and it's like I'm actually following like what brings me joy because I feel like so many people like they feel like they have to work jobs they don't like because they need the money. And it's like, okay, you do need to sustain yourself, but we should all be doing things that align with our purpose, because otherwise, what's the point? How can people connect with you, Sahar, and like learn more about your journey and like be involved in like as you work towards building like all of these spaces for people to just exist and grow and learn? Because I think like that is so needed, and you need a team. And I know there's so many people out there that will listen to this that will be like, oh my God, Sahar, like that's awesome. Like I want to be a part of that. So how can people connect with you to just like see your journey as you travel this world and you figure out your experience, but also just like to be a part of that and to just be a part of the team to make this world like the world that we know it deserves to be?
Yeah, well, I love that. I just love that you like phrased it the way you did because I feel like every time people are like, "What do you do and what do you want to do?" I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, and I feel like I'm definitely in a process of like finding like what is my specific niche or like what's my specific purpose, you
I
know?
feel you.
Yeah,
I feel
but
you.
if people are interested in anything I talked about, they can follow me on Instagrams, on the grams. That's Sahar Wanders. I just choked on Wanders. Sahar Wanders with an Wanders. And then I also have a YouTube channel as well if people wanted to subscribe to that. So it's also Sahar Wanders.
Ooh, I need to subscribe. I need to subscribe. I'm gonna do that right after this.
Don't worry, I haven't posted in a while, but don't let that deter you,
It's
please.
all good. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
um,
I'm here to support for through it all. Through it all.
I appreciate. Yeah, I think that those would be the best places. Probably like Instagram. I put a 10-minute timer on all of my social media apps, so the moment I hit 10 minutes on any of them, they all shut down. But I will I will try to answer. I've been bad at answering, but I feel like in general, just like connecting with people, like if someone's just like, hey, let's like set up a video chat or meet up, I would love to. So just let that be known.
I feel like when it comes to the gram, like you can't even be mad at people for not answering you. Like people are living their lives, bruh. Like if you mad over the gram, then you need to go and meditate, son. Like really and truly. Go meditate. It's not that deep. Like it's so funny, like even now, like when I see myself get mad, I'm like, just go meditate, child. It's okay. It's okay. You're not really mad. Just go meditate.
I love it. Yeah, so I think that would be it. And I don't know if this is the end of the conversation because I think that seems like an ending thing. But I was just curious about or I think
Yeah.
something that I'm thinking about as you were talking is just like thinking about a lot of young people right now who are entering the workforce and who are like really overwhelmed or like don't know how best to like organize their time or manage their time. And like I think we all just like again another just tools we never learned in school. And I feel like I'm seeing that like a lot in on the island. And I think you and I working for like companies from like another country, I feel like I've learned so much about what it means to like foster a healthy-ish work environment and for people to like really support you as a team. So that's another thing beyond education that if people want to talk about and like just talk about like healing the workforce and getting that minimum wage to above five
It needs
dollars, I would
healing.
love to talk about
It
it.
needs healing. Oh yes, when I say my minimum wage is like just a face palm emoji. I just cannot. It's just a lot of things that I'm like, let's put a pin in that on the board with all the other pins of things that should have already been solved, but here we are. But I agree, like as we move into the workforce, like I felt like it has been such an eye-opening experience because you see how like old people look at work, and I'm like, I feel sorry for you. Like I really do. But it's okay because I'm here to help, like, let's rock the boat. Like, I'm like, corporate, we're here to heal. Yes. Um, but yeah, I think we'll get there. I think we are. Because, like I see it in the tech world already, like this push. That's why I love Microsoft so much. The culture is really and truly one that I think wants to create that world of empowerment for people. And it's just absolutely incredible to see it and to know that that will influence the rest of the world. Like, I'm just so pumped. I'm so
I
pumped.
love it, and I'm so excited to follow your journey, and I'm so grateful that we got to talk as well. There's a moment where you were talking where I was like, I was having an outer body experience where I was like, whoa, I'm talking to you right now. I don't know, because I feel like this is just like these conversations just make me feel like really connected to my spirit. But yes, I really appreciated it.
Same here. Same here. I swear. That's why I love this. That's why I love this so, so much.